Hi, it's Hazel.
Hey, it's Azura.
And it's Jermaine.
Welcome back to Celebrities Hush Podcast. Today we have a guest with us, Narelle. Okay, before we begin today's session, I just want to say the studio smells amazing.
Because of Narelle?
Yeah.
Yes.
You smell great.
Smells of like roses.
It's char kway teow. Oh, sorry. I mean that too.
But we've actually got some candles here from Michelle of Mitch Living.
That's right. It smells incredible. This is what? Rose-scented
yeah.
candle,
Is that why
right?
you guys are all in pink?
Oh, actually, it just added up nicely.
Blackpink.
Blackpink. Yeah, but thank you very much to Michelle. It smells heavenly in here, and hopefully it can help us in today's podcast.
So now, can we please have Narelle do a self-introduction? Say hi to our listeners.
Hello. My name is Narelle.
I aspire to be this cool.
This cool, right? Yeah. My name is Azura. Like, that's it.
Like, yo.
It's self-explanatory.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Narelle. I am a singer, songwriter. Blah, 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 blah. It gets harder and harder to introduce yourself. I feel like the older you get and the longer you spend in the industry, right? Because it's like you start off saying one thing and then you say another. And now I'm just like,
Right.
I don't know anymore, man. I'm just here.
They call it multi-hyphenate.
Is that what I
Yeah,
call?
you're a multi-hyphenate. You do everything. Yeah. Artist.
I'm a
right?
blob.
So many things, and your latest single just released, right? Complicated Love Song.
That's right.
That's what we're going to talk about today.
This is part 3 of the EP. Are there any more parts that are going to come up?
没有了.
Okay, it's a trilogy.
Yes,
That's
it's a
it.
trilogy, yeah. So
That's
I'm
it.
finally done. It's finished.
Yeah.
But you can listen to part 1 and part 2.
So how are you feeling now that all 3 parts of your songs, all 3 songs have been released, and you can finally, just take a breather?
Yeah, honestly, that's how I feel. I'm just like, I'm
Mood,
sorry.
eh? That's
My
big
manager's
mood.
sitting there like, yeah.
She looks
constantly
fierce. She
call
looks
me.
fierce, huh?
No, she's the sweetest. Love you.
She's manager vibes.
Yeah, manager vibes, that's right. So we want to touch a bit more about, complicated love song. Love is not that simple, right?
It
Love is
isn't.
super complicated. It comes with a lot of baggage most times. And that's kind of what we want to discuss today, how our relationships with our parents affect our relationships now with your friends, with your partners, and all that.
Actually, it matters a lot.
Yeah.
But before that, Narelle, do you mind if I ask, what is your family background
already.
like?
Oh.
Start with.
First of all,
Only
go in
if
a
you're
circle.
comfortable, yeah.
Yeah, only if you're
Okay,
comfortable.
but what aspect, because how much time do we have?
Oh.
Okay, a brief rundown.
Yes.
then.
Yes.
So my family upbringing, I have a father, and my mom passed away when I was 9. I have a brother. Most of y'all know that.
Benjamin King.
Yes, and our dad started dating our stepmom when I was 10, and we also have 3 stepbrothers that we've kind of been moving in and out of, like staying together because it's quite expensive to get a house in Singapore that fits like 5-6 people. At this point, my dad is literally moving out of the house. All the children have more or less left. He's retired, so we're going through a new shift in the family, and it's quite interesting. Yeah,
Nice.
That's a very quick rundown.
So all of you get along very, very well.
Now
Oh.
we do. But y'all also must share.
Of course.
Of course.
We've been sharing for like 2 seasons.
Okay, so for myself, I come from a simple family, my dad and my mom, and then there's my elder sister, there's myself and my younger brother. And my younger brother is becoming a dad really, really soon. Yeah,
So you're going to be an auntie.
yes, I am. To a baby girl, my baby niece. Yeah, it's very, very exciting. Yeah, so this is my family in a nutshell. What about you?
Okay, so we know that I grew up in a single parent household.
Okay.
But what I haven't shared in the podcast is, I think I was about 6. My dad disappeared, like off the surface of the earth.
What? Like
Yeah.
can't find?
No.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So like we used to live overseas. So he had a job that requires him to travel. So we used to follow him till I was like 6, and then because 7 is P1, right? So my mother insisted that I came back for a Singaporean education.
Okay.
So we came back, and he moved on to the next country, and then we stayed in touch by like phone and emails and everything. And he came back like once, and then one day he just disappeared. So everything was gone.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So until now, you guys have no idea. Your mom? No clue.
Was she upset?
That's the thing, you see. Like I think a lot of our parents, they probably don't express very much. Like they don't sit down and talk to us. They probably think that we're too young and stuff like that. So I wish that she had like sat me down to tell me what was going on. But it was a lot of figuring out on my part. And I think she was also trying to like not show me that, you know, like she's
Yeah,
sad
because
and
she
stuff
also
like
wants to
Yeah.
feel like she's tough and she can handle it.
No,
Yeah,
but
I'm so
I
sorry
think,
to hear
yeah,
that.
Yeah, that's alright.
Your mom is incredible.
Yes.
Like, really, really incredible.
you're
woman.
incredible.
Yeah. Does Auntie watch this?
No, please don't.
But well, thank you so much for sharing, you know, about that, and we'll touch on how that affects your current relationships as well. I think for me, I'm very blessed to be from, I guess, what they term a not nuclear family, the family
Nucleus.
units, nucleus family. Yes, like one mom, one dad, then one daughter, one son. It's like you know the traditional ultimate what you could ask
What
for.
Lee Kuan Yew wanted. What? Who said that?
Right. So yeah. No, but I'm grateful that I've been blessed with that. But I think it doesn't mean that there are no communication issues. I think with our Asian kind of like background and Asian values, you always run into something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Barbie, why?
Barbie.
Her dad calls her
parents,
Barbie.
her dad calls her
Aiyo.
Barbie.
Until this day, I'm 26 years old. He calls me Barbie.
cute lah.
Yeah, cute lah.
Mine's like, nah.
Oh my god, nah.
Okay, so you know, studies have said that how you give and receive love in a relationship is greatly influenced and shaped by our parents. Some researchers also suggest that our very, very first experience with love and emotions is also with our parents. And those early years set the bar for what we want out of love or relationships later in our lives.
Actually, Hazel mentioned this in a previous episode.
About her
that-
dad.
Yeah, how your dad always takes care of the family's finances.
Right.
So you would want to find someone that can do that and take that role as well.
Right. So I have to say I agree with the statement because both my parents are working adults and they believe in contributing to the family in their own ways.
Okay.
And my dad actually helps out with the household chores. Sometimes maybe my mum forces him to lah, but he does it anyways, you know. So I think this is a very good quality of a partner that I want to find in the future. But one thing I wouldn't use the word dislike. One thing I find can be improved is the way they communicate with each other. I think people in the older generation, they communicate by arguing most times. And, you know, this can cause things to be quite negative. And this is one thing I know for sure that I don't want in a partner.
Okay. Nora, what about you? Do you agree that, you know, the way that your parents are can influence the person that you look for?
Yeah, I mean, in preparation for this podcast, and I mean the late cab ride on the way here, I watched 2 YouTube videos.
Okay.
Very briefly, they were talking about like different types of personalities that form depending on the kind of attachment issues that your parents give you as a child. So that I definitely 100% agree with because we learn how to form attachments from our parents. So whether they are present or whether they are like flaky. There's also this thing called like childhood emotional neglect. So it's like our parents often think of, you know, providing basic necessities, food, education, etc., which is great and like thank you. But at the same time, there's a lot of emotional needs that we still haven't fully learned to understand and like how do we ensure that a child is properly
Cared for.
emotionally wise.
So, do you agree that
If you want extra effect, you can go na.
Oh, he does that sometimes?
do you agree that the way that your parents are sets the bar for your relationships?
I mean, I think 100% they are like, if you're arguing nature versus nurture, I would say a good 85% like resultant in who we are today. But at the same time, like that extra like 15% of nature is like you can react so completely different. And I think about that a lot every time I try and like look at how Ben and I also became so different, even though we have more or less quite the same upbringing. So it's all relative, says the Libra.
But that's why, you know, like people always talk about like daddy issues, mommy issues and stuff like that, right? And I just wanted to ask Narelle actually, if it's not too personal, like, you know, having gone through like losing your mom at such a young age, do you think that has affected, I guess, like the way you love as well?
So much. So Ben and I were actually just talking about this the other day because he recently got married. And yeah, and
Congratulations.
Beneo, that's what I call them. But yeah, like both of us are serial monogamists. Like we're always in a relationship and we're always hopping through. Well, he's finally done. And we love to talk about love. Like every time we're in the car, we're like, hey, so what's going on now? You know, like, and yeah, it was only this year that we realized, like, for me, my reaction was anger and hurt, whereas he was so afraid to lose people, whereas I cut them off so easily because that was kind of my coping mechanism. I was like, I'm not going to let anybody come too close because I don't believe anybody can stay. Yeah.
I think that happened to you at a really young age, and it's a lot of trauma that you have to work through as well.
So the difference I also realized was Ben had a lot more of his kind of growing years with my mom because she passed when he was 12 and I was 9.
Right.
So she fell sick when I was 4. So essentially, there was not a time where I really remember what it was like having her conscious and present. Yeah. And she was more of like the parent. My dad's more of like the breadwinner.
Right.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that you and your brother are both serial monogamists. Does that mean that you're currently in a relationship?
Yes. I think I don't remember when I've like been single.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the
Y'all share, please. Just go quickly. Traffic light. What's going on?
what's going on with life? Well, I think that, to be honest,
She's waiting to be proposed to.
I am waiting. I'm waiting. Yeah, there's no ring yet.
If you
on
like
the
it, then you should
left
have put a
hand, right?
ring on it.
Left.
Nothing
That's right.
empty. I think in terms of whether my parents set the bar, I definitely think so. In terms of, I feel like, the husband needs to try to take care of the family needs at the very least. But to be honest, I'm okay with even like female being the breadwinner. We had a conversation about this where, I do earn more than my boyfriend at this point in time. And I think that's completely okay. But definitely the way that my parents brought me up does affect how I see a partner.
For sure. So, do you think your parents?
She wants to know the
Yeah,
tea.
quick.
Okay. So I'm single now, and I'm not in a rush to be in a relationship. I think that's fully okay. Yeah, I'm just taking my time, focusing my career, and doing the things I really, really fucking love.
Love that.
I'm right. Yeah.
How long?
2 this July.
Wow, congratulations.
Oh.
Terrible twos yet?
But I do think that because I didn't have much to look at growing up. Yeah. So I think it was a lot of figuring out. But I also noticed like maybe somewhere down the line that I realized that I think I had this habit of I think pushing people.
Actually, I feel like I really vibe with you quite a bit because I do feel most of my childhood was like, the hell is going on?
Yeah.
Right? And
Yeah.
like, I guess you've been pretty independent most of your
Yeah.
life as well.
Yeah. And you sort of like develop this sense to just like numb yourself a little bit so
Yeah.
that, it's just very easy for you to like, if someone leaves, okay.
So what I learned in the YouTube video was like, that's called the controller.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you have had to be independent most of your life, like you become more logical and you don't really deal with like big emotions that much because you haven't really dealt in some sense with a lot of it yourself. I mean, that's just a generalized statement. Of course, we're very complex creatures, everybody different.
That's all.
Um,
That makes sense.
yeah. But I feel that like now every time I keep going back into my childhood to try and think like, oh, because who am I? What happened? Like when you don't have a parent that can tell, I try and go to my dad and be like, oh, so what was I like? He I don't know. Like, you're just independent,
Right.
And recently we've been having this conversation, right, where now the family dynamic is he feels like my stepmom coddles the sons too much, whereas
Okay.
he's always like, see, I raised y'all so well, y'all are so independent. And when he says that, inside I'm screaming like, I wish you weren't,
Right.
It wasn't a choice for you.
Yeah, it wasn't
Yeah,
a choice. You had to
exactly.
grow up quickly.
But then I also understand like he, in his own ego, he always felt like he wasn't a good enough dad. So in some sense, if I say like, hey, actually you didn't do that great a job, like that kind of crumbles his ego. And I also do think like now when we talk to parents, because we are so fortunate to have so much more information, I take it as our responsibility to lead them through these steps. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I think definitely from our generation, we are way more open about communication issues and all of these things, right? But a question for the floor. Has there been any romantic partner, past or present, that you felt was exactly like one of your parents? Like, you know how they always say, oh, you're going to end up marrying someone like your mom or your dad?
Yeah.
Do you think?
Okay, 3, 2, 1. Let's say our answers. It's either
Wait,
yes or
wait.
no, right? Think about
Okay.
it. Okay, in 3, 2, 1.
No.
Yes.
Okay, let's
No,
start
I
with the
said
yeses.
no.
I'm interested.
There's only one yes,
That's only me?
Yeah.
That's only me?
Tell us more.
My
Okay, you
goodness.
go first.
Okay. So in uni, I dated this guy. He was
It's
such
not
a
the
good
Javianas
guy.
one, huh?
Javianas guy.
Not the Javianas guy. No, not that one. Not
I
that
already
one.
have an image.
He's a very good guy. Studies hard, plays hard as well. We met in like a dance, our CCA, our dance club, and we do hip hop together. So that was great, and it was coincidental. I realized that he's really a lot like my dad.
Oh, in
Doing
what
things
sense?
the very traditional way and helping out whenever I need it.
Oh.
Yeah, but not the party kind, not the kind who will go wild and crazy. Exactly like my dad. Man of few words. Yeah, it's crazy how similar they are.
Do you think if you ended up in a relationship with him now, it would work out?
No,
Okay.
no, I'm sorry. That's why we broke up in the first place, I guess.
Because he's too much like your dad?
No lah. It's because he's a pharmacist, right? So he went on to pursue his career, and I went on to pursue mine as a radio DJ. Our lives just got too different. Too different, and the way we handled things are also too different.
Okay, so having had that experience, would you still want to date someone like your dad, or
No.
no?
I think I'll be more cautious in the dating phase.
Okay.
You know what I mean? No, even before we get to the official boyfriend-girlfriend kind of stage,
Yeah.
I'll be more cautious and I would end things there. But we're still good friends.
Yeah.
Very, very good friends.
Okay. He's gonna hit you up after
Wait,
this.
quick poll. Friends with your ex's ENA.
Yay!
I'm super.
Yay! I'm not friends with any of my exes. I'm so sorry.
And neither can Asa.
I'm so sorry.
Okay, we'll get to that next episode.
I honestly think thinking about dating someone like my dad, right? There are a few behavioral habits of my dad that I would think is a red flag. If I were to date someone like that, you know what I mean? In terms of communication issues, like
Right.
that's a red flag for me. I don't think I can accept that. What do you guys feel?
I think we always hear like a lot of. I mean, I've heard many times like trying not to be like your parents, or not wanting to see someone like your parents.
Okay.
But there's also this fear that the harder you push,
You would just
The
end up
more
with
you'll
someone
come
like
to
that.
Yeah.
It's possible too, actually. Okay.
I actually feel like I have never really thought about it.
Yeah.
In fact, I don't know if you relate to this, but when you kind of push your parents away and distance yourself from it, it's almost like I'd rather date someone completely opposite of you, and I'll find everything else. And also, I've never even really considered it at all.
yeah.
Like what my dad would think, what it's like,
That's right.
whether you're similar or not.
That's right. Yeah.
Because I'm independent. I find what I want in this
Correct.
moment. That's it.
Correct. You just don't think about it.
Yeah.
So on the topic of, daddy issues and mommy issues, right? Maybe a question for both Narelle and Azura. Do you guys feel like you have experienced daddy or mommy issues? Maybe for Azura?
Honestly, because it happened when I was like 6, right? And because of the nature of the situation and maybe just how I am. So I just grew up very quickly, and I think there's many things that can happen, when you're at that part in your life. But for me, I just took on that like role where I knew my mother was trying to be strong for me, and so I did the same as well. So you sort of like numb yourself a little bit. And for many years, you see, the thing is, I don't think she knew exactly what was going on as well, because he disappeared, right? It wasn't like a divorce or anything, So for many years, she would tell me, like, if anyone asked me in school, to say that my dad's working overseas lah. And I never knew when to stop saying that, because
Are you feeling comfortable, like even sharing about this?
yeah, as in
Okay.
honestly, I don't feel very much about it. Like it feels like something I know in my head.
Okay.
Because you
But
were too
I-
young back then as well.
Okay, feel free to ignore this question.
Okay.
Do you think some part of you is still waiting?
Okay, so for a long time, I always thought that I wanted to find this person before I got married.
Okay.
Yeah,
my
but
God, oh my
obviously that
God.
didn't happen. Because I don't know where to start, right? We have no idea where he is. And I still, so quite recently, I think maybe a couple months ago, I asked a friend who has a good, like, size of contacts. And I said, do you think it's possible to find this person? And he said, why?
Oh.
Why do you want to see him? And I said, I don't know. I just want to. The one thing that I actually think about quite a lot is that with like accessibility to internet and everything right now, and knowing that my name is quite unique, like you won't find 100 people with the same name.
Right.
So I wonder quite a bit, like, does he know how I look like? Like, does he search me out on the net?
And you're a public persona. I mean, like you're not like living your life in secret. Like your face is out there.
Right.
Yeah.
But here's my question. Do you know if he's even alive? No. I'm sorry.
No, I've thought about that too. Dead or alive, we don't know. I really don't know. Yeah. So my friend sort of like tried to get it out of me. Like, so if I find this person for you right now, like, what are you gonna say? And I said,
Wow.
I don't know. I just want him to see me.
Okay, I have two comments to that, right? One is I was watching on YouTube. Apparently, hackers now can like find missing people, so maybe that's of use.
Oh.
Okay.
And the second was a podcast I was listening to where they talk about how stories that we make up really help us like psychosisly. So sometimes, I mean, I think that's also art and expression, right? The truth is relative and often we don't know. But in my experience, I found quite a lot of relief in creating stories or just finding different ways of expressing like potential outcomes or situations that kind of you can put it at a distance, but the idea behind it is that it gives your brain some kind of resolve and something to hold on to, and it's that emotional release that you get. If one day you feel like it, maybe that would help.
Yeah. Are you tearing?
I was.
Oh, no.
I'm so sorry. I mean, it's just like it can't. I mean, it's so that uncertainty. I can't imagine what that must be going through. And I actually like we think about divorced parents and dead parents, but wow, like missing. It's not even divorce. It's just bloop. Yeah. And as someone who has like abandonment issues, like people just suddenly disappearing or leaving my life, that freaks me out like crazy. Do you have abandonment issues?
I don't think so, but I think what I notice in like my relationship with people is that I think I tend to push not them away, but just to sort of like you just want to know if they'll stick around, and I think I do that.
It's like a test?
Subconsciously. Yeah, it's not intentional. Neither do I think that it should be that way because, but I think when I catch myself like after, then I'll be like, oh, I think that's what I try and tend to. But earlier when you mentioned that, like for you tend to push people away, but for Ben, he tends to like hold on to people. But I sort of feel like I'm a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I don't know about you, but for me, like I tend to be very hard up about like moments and like things, and I get very upset when people don't take importance in it. So that's why like I put a lot of importance in like being present and things like that. So that's my bit of like holding on.
That's great though. I mean, it's super important to be present, and at least like if anything, you've learned that.
But I have a question though. So your husband, did you put him through like any test?
I don't know. Okay, there are 4 types of love or like things that you look for in a partner, right? So I've had this thought quite a bit actually because there's that fireworks or whatever it is, like
Right.
Butterflies.
butterflies.
Yeah.
I don't have any of that.
So it's a it's a very steady, stable kind of feeling.
Yeah, it's like so. I think when you think about it, like if we put a number to it, for example, like if you think that, or if you watch movies and stuff like that, you think that it's gonna be like butterflies and fireworks are like a 10, right? Like you have like really high days and they're like, oh, connection and like soulmate and whatever it is, and that's a 10. But I think if you're gonna offer me a relationship like that, but the catch is that 10s come with ones,
Right.
I would take like a solid 7, like a steady 7.
Actually, like when I've been talking to all my friends who've been married, who've gotten married now, and I asked them like, how do you know? Like everyone has said the same thing, that it's like it's just steady.
Yeah.
And it's a totally different kind of feeling. It's like it's not puppy love. It's not like It really is just I feel like I can do it with you.
Yeah.
I think marriage is definitely much more complicated than we think as well. And I think that Azura is really incredibly mentally strong. I don't know how. If I had been through half the things that she had, I would be a ball of anxiety, which I still am these days, even not having, a background like that. But yeah, we're really proud of both Azura and Narelle. I think you guys have made great strides, and with trauma like that from your childhood, it can be hard to work through. But in terms of like seeing people around you date, right? And whether they resemble their parents. Has anyone seen anything like that? Because our producer, she married her dad, she says. Our producer, someone who is... Let's not put it that way, yeah? That's quite terrible. She married
someone who resembles her dad.
Yes.
Right.
Who resembles her dad in the looks. No.
Personality.
She's like, no.
Personality.
Yeah, in terms of the personality, someone who's simple, thrifty, and a bit of an introvert. I think she found that was something
Do
comfortable
you have a good
for her.
relationship with your dad?
You look up
that's
to them?
great.
Okay.
Oh,
That's great.
Maybe that's the catch.
Right.
If you have a good relationship with them, you naturally want to seek people out that are like them. But has anyone seen any, friends who date someone that's exactly like their parents?
I think subconsciously they always start out to seek something good qualities in their own fathers. I
Okay.
think that's everyone. That's every girl.
Okay. Yeah,
I think I was just thinking that I realized most of my friends come from complicated families. But also like none of them care that much about their parents.
It's true.
Oh dear.
Oh my goodness.
But I love my dad greatly. I really do.
No, that's great. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
that is, imagine if you didn't really have a good relationship with your parents. You want to find someone that is not like that at all, right?
Yeah, I think that resembles my friends more so.
Actually, something quite interesting is that, so I've got this friend, and she wasn't really taken care of by her parents, so she was with her grandparents a lot.
Okay.
And so she has an older brother, and her grandfather favored her older brother a lot more. Even if she doesn't do anything, right? Like she just gets the shorter end of the stick lah, all the time. And subconsciously, what we've noticed as friends is that she tends to gravitate to guys who don't value her as much.
I was just gonna bring that up. Because I also have friends whose parents, for example, have multiple relationships, cheating, and it also somehow passes down to their children.
Yeah.
I think maybe let's say if you're young and you come from a family where abuse or emotional abuse, not just physical abuse, is a constant, you might think that's normal.
Yes.
If you normalize it in your head, then you seek that. You don't know any other healthy relationship, you see.
So you seek the love you think you deserve.
Exactly, yeah. So I think if you see this in your friends and stuff like that, and maybe they're not too aware, like try to have conversations with them, It could be that it's difficult to work through such trauma, definitely.
But like I mentioned, I feel like my parents communicate by arguing, and I know for sure that this is something I don't want in my relationship. So I also think it takes knowing more people and things to realize these for yourself. If not, you just end up looking for someone you argue or you quarrel to just get your point across, and that is not healthy in a relationship.
Sound like me.
Yeah, exactly. But he will give in, so it's okay.
No, but it's not. But no angry, no. But yeah, I think my situation is very similar to Hazel's, where I guess my parents communicate. Like it was a very noisy household. 90% of the time, my mom would be shouting about something. You don't even know what, but you just hear, and sometimes you just phase it out at the end of the day. But because of that, that's how I learned to communicate with my emotions first, and then logic second.
Right.
So I always come on a bit too harsh to
Okay.
people, and I think they feel like, oh, you're very emotional. That's what I always get. You're a very emotional person. Yeah. So unfortunately, that's something that I learned, and I'm still trying to work through today.
But that's good. At least you realized it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
But it's difficult, like to stop myself from reading with
Right,
emotions.
right. It's tough
Yeah.
because we have grown up like this all the time.
Exactly. Yeah.
My family is the opposite. My family, we don't talk about anything.
Okay.
The only time my dad and I used to communicate, we would be fighting, but it's always like, it's not just like, oh, the dish is not clean kind. It's like big, deep issues. So now in my family, it's quite interesting because we are reworking like how do we open communication with each other and stuff like that. But it's been very successful. I'm quite happy with it.
Oh, that's
Can
nice.
you teach us?
I think moving out helps.
Right.
Yeah. But I think it came to a point where I realized like if I wasn't going to fix this, it would just not be good. And like I realized like love is a choice. And when you move out, you don't feel like the real family is an obligation anymore. It becomes like an active choice because if you don't do something about it, you will drift.
Yeah.
Yeah. So even like when Ben was getting married, it's like we were like all crying and crazy. And then he said in his thank you speech to me, he was like, I feel like I've become so much more clingy of you. And I was like, I get it. I take my dad out and we go for lunches and I sit him down and I just tell him like, these are all the things I'm struggling with. This is who I am. These are the things that I wish you pay more attention to. Yeah. And also if he doesn't react in the way that I want him to kind of just be like, okay, next time we try again.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah, you can't like really egg on and force
Yeah.
it your way. You have to give them time because this is what they grew up with. This is also their trauma from when they were young, right?
100%.
And I think I told this story before about how when my dad was young, he had like 13 siblings. So there was zero communication in his household. Like his parents didn't have time to ask him, how are you feeling today?
Yeah.
They were out there making money, right? And that translated into today where I can see it in my brother as well, where they kind of avoid emotions. I guess it's more about logic. It's like, oh, don't come to me for emotional stuff, for example. Yeah.
I don't know how different like the previous generations had it, but I think with the advent of the internet, it's quite crazy now. Like, and millennials, like, we're stuck right in the middle of Gen Z and boomers, and we see so much,
Yes.
right? We've had to deal with our parents above, and then when we deal with our kids, it's gonna be like, whew.
Ooh.
I think we always say like, oh, when we become parents, we don't want to take the flaws, but it's easier said than done. When we actually become parents, let's
Then
do
we
another
see if
episode.
we can do it, right?
Exactly.
Let's see how our kids turn out.
And what they'll be pissed off with us about.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so Zura mentioned 4 types of love just now, right? Just want to share this with our listeners. Type number 1, this is what we call the stable love. So some traits include capable of sending and receiving healthy expressions of intimacy, feeling secure being alone, as well as with companions, capable of drawing healthy, appropriate, and reasonable boundaries.
Wow, got
seems
people like this?
super healthy.
I don't know this.
All right, number 2.
Okay, unstable love. Anxious, preoccupied attachment style. Some traits include feeling more nervous, less secure about relationships, and have many stresses such as neediness, possessive, jealousy, mood swings, control, obsessiveness, and requires validation to feel secure or accepted. And dislikes being without company and struggles being with themselves. I feel like I relate a bit too much. Moving on.
Can I just say that her voice is so calming?
Yeah, right?
So
Like,
nice
can I
to listen
call you
to.
when I'm mad?
I love talking to mad people. I don't know why.
Okay, so the third one is absence of love or highly reserved, distant love. It's also called dismissive, avoidant attachment style.
You relate again. Really again.
So, traits include highly self-directed and self-sufficient independent, avoid true intimacy, which they believe makes them vulnerable, desire freedom physically and emotionally, may have commitment issues.
It's because you're married, fine.
I had commitment issues for a long time.
The last one is fearful and or painful love. This is the fearful avoidant attachment style. And some traits include, if you've got very highly challenging life experiences such as grief, abandonment, and or abuse, and you could also resist intimacy. It's kind of like a conflict that you have within yourself. You struggle with confidence. You feel more nervous and less secure about relationships. You may also have commitment issues.
So A, stable love.
Yes.
B, unstable love. C, highly reserved, distant love. And D, painful love. Which one do you think you relate more to? 3, 2, 1. A.
Unstable love.
Yeah, B. Yes, C, right?
Okay. Hazel first. You relate to A, so you are the myth that we've been talking about, the unicorn, essentially. Tell us more.
No, I think I'm just a happy and confident person. I can draw boundaries. I know what I want and what I don't want. And I'm capable of protecting myself. Okay, so next, Narelle.
Okay, I relate to B and D, which is unstable, fearful or painful love. But I also do feel that the older you get, the more relationships I've experienced. While I could not understand the idea of stable love last time, I do now, and it becomes a lot easier to identify, to draw
Right.
boundaries, to understand. Not saying that those like uncomfortable feelings don't crop up, but it becomes a lot easier to be like, okay, I recognize you're not helpful. I'm gonna put you aside. Also, just a random point that when I was like reading about this online, it did say like people with any kind of unstable attachment styles should date someone with a stable attachment style because they will help you and teach you and have experienced it, and it's really great. Like dating someone that is stable, you're like, holy crap.
Right.
Different world.
Yeah, it's totally different. Yeah.
What about
Interesting.
you, Azura?
So I related C, right?
Okay.
But also because of just how I am and how I choose to be, because I recognize and I acknowledge that if I'm gonna drown in these feelings, I'm not gonna go anywhere lah. So I chose at, I guess, a rather early age that I'm gonna fuck everything and do what I want, do what makes me happy. But that's also with, it comes with numbing yourself. Like you're very okay to, this is not helpful. I'm done. Yeah. So I thought that's something great that I got out of it. But it's true because so my husband's my first actual relationship.
Wow.
so sweet.
Yeah, because I just never committed before that because I just had issues committing, right? So I'm not gonna do that. But with Iran, right, like it's true. Like you come to a point where you're just done with all the fun, and a solid 7 on any day, you will take that, even if it's not like fireworks and everything, right? But you realize that stability, emotional stability, it helps you stay safe.
Yeah.
And he seems someone very, very stable.
Yeah, doesn't he?
He picks her up from work almost every
They
night.
terrorize him every night also.
Yeah, I think he hates us, but
Very
but no,
dependable.
but definitely, I think with you and Erwan, he seems like someone that does not have any attachment
Right.
issues. First and foremost, so and you being mentally strong as well, you learning all those concepts when you were younger probably help you as well. Yeah, for sure.
You, Jimmy?
Definitely a B. Unstable love. I've been in a relationship where the other person also had attachment issues.
Oh,
And it was like
damn.
it was bad lah.
Yep, been
Basically
there.
both sides disintegrated.
Chaos.
Yeah, chaotic, really. Chaotic energy. It was terrible and both of us left the relationship in worse mental states than we entered
Oh,
it.
damn.
Yeah, that was terrible.
How long was the relationship?
2.5 years.
Yeah.
No, but the thing is that we didn't recognize we both had issues to work through. We were clearly not ready for that relationship lah. But with Asaf now, he's someone that came from a family where his parents told him they love him every single day, gave him everything that he could possibly need, and he has no issues. He has no jealousy, no insecurity, no confidence issues, no attachment issues. He's
Can we just shout out all the good men?
like, oh my
In general,
god.
I mean, like people hate on men so much, right? But should really shout out to the
Yeah,
good
yeah,
few.
yeah.
Thank you very
Asap lab.
much.
Yeah, we always say all men are trash, not all.
Yeah, not all men
Unicorn
are
time.
star.
Yeah. So definitely, I agree with Narelle. Being with someone who is in a sort of like more stable love kind of attachment style, it does help you. But not to say that your partner should fix you as well. I
Right.
think you need to fix yourself first. You need to work on yourself. Yeah.
Self-love and self-care is very, very important.
Yeah, definitely. But the good news is that this study also said if you've got any one of the negative attachment styles, you can grow from that. You can condition yourself from that. And I think we're all on a journey to be more like Hazel.
That's right. At least we're aware of it, you know, we're moving. But, you know, speaking about that as well, because we haven't touched on, like, okay, right now, like where you are, Narelle, at the age that you're at and the experience that you've had, what kind of relationship are you in right now?
Is he a stable kind of guy?
Super stable.
Oh.
Taurus. Earth sign.
Okay.
Very interesting because, like, you know, just now I said I'm a serial monogamist.
Yeah.
But this is the one relationship where, surprisingly, and this works for us, we're not like together. We also don't like the idea of like labels, or we're not holding the idea of like marriage as a very big thing, and open to the idea of like open relationships, which is something that we haven't fully explored it yet. But having commitment issues myself, just the idea of having that kind of open space surprisingly helps me readjust some ideals that perhaps I've gotten too attached to. For example, I always cling on to the idea of a relationship to save everything because I never had that kind of stable relationship growing up. I want this person to be that. But then what happens is I just get obsessed with the idea of being together and getting married, which is quite toxic because then you don't really understand that marriage is just the start, you know.
Yeah.
There's all these things, and the moment I took that away, I realized like in my previous relationships, I had been looking to marriage as an end goal. When I took away the label, then I saw the timeline of your whole fucking life with someone, you know, like, can I really see this person every day? So small things like that once we've built so much structures and ideas around these ideals, like when I took it away, I found it very interesting. So even like not possessing a partner, so not feeling like you belong to me and you're not allowed to go and talk about, blah, don't be jealous, which forces me to confront my jealousy issues.
Okay.
But the fact that he's very stable is great because he says, I just want to be able to talk about everything. I don't want to feel like he's trapped either. And it's like, whatever is not comfortable for you, we'll talk about it. So the conversations we have then is like, for example, I'll think about it and I say, okay, if you ever want to go talk to someone else, I want the power to veto. So I want the power to say, you come home now and you leave and you get up and that's it. And he says, okay, you know?
Oh.
Yeah. Which then makes me feel like, okay, I have the control.
Yeah.
And at the same time, sometimes it's quite fun, right? To feel like, oh, you go talk to someone else, I just, excuse me, this is my man.
I'm Nana.
Roles reverse. Can he do that as well?
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, when I think of him going off doing that, I immediately get very jealous. But then I think about like, the other gender makes up half the damn population, right? Like, being able to be, not say sexually intimate, but even just have a emotionally intimate relationship with someone of another gender without your partner being jealous, I think that's quite a good thing to have.
Yes.
Yeah.
For sure.
and you can create new boundaries. Yeah.
I think it's a mark of a healthy relationship, definitely.
Hope so.
Yeah, being able to get to that point, right?
All right, shout out to this
Yeah.
Taurus guy. Yeah, you got it.
I think we've discussed about, the absence of your parents in your childhood or just them not being emotionally available that causes, strain on your relationships. But the flip side, right? I think where parents become too involved in your relationships and want to
God.
dictate who you date.
Actually, as Asian kids, like that's probably the most common type of situation that
Definitely.
most people face.
All the K dramas, mother-in-law and the daughter-in-law kind of issues. My goodness.
Yeah, they always say you should be scared of your mother-in-law. My mother-in-law is great, like our future mother-in-law. But I think my own mom was very involved in my relationship with my current boyfriend the first time round because we broke up then we got back together, right? I was very young and she had told me, this is your first relationship, go and see the world, right? And at that point I was like, no, I'm in love.
Oh.
Then when we broke up, she screamed at me. She was like, why did you guys break up? Was there another guy? Are you dating someone else? The answer was yes, but I told her no. She's like, is there someone else? And she was very involved in it and she texted him and said like, oh, is everything okay? Like, you can come and meet me. Like, I can talk to you if there's anything that I can fix. But that's like a bit too involved, don't you think?
No.
No, I think that's quite healthy. It's like saying like I'm here if you need anything.
But
up
we
to
had
you.
broken up at that point.
But I think she
likes
valued him
him.
enough.
Yeah.
She valued him enough to give him this kind of comfort even when you guys have broken up.
Okay.
And I think that's great.
That's how you stay friends with your exes.
Yeah, she didn't do that for the other one. Hey, no. But yeah, so sometimes when your parents get too involved, maybe in a bad way, maybe this one is good intentions, but
Right.
if they say like, oh, you can't date this person because they are of a lower social status than you, could you
You
imagine
touched on
that?
that the other time, right?
Yes. So I have a good friend. Her mom is always very worried, overly worried about the kind of people that she dates. Yeah, and I think this puts a bit of stress on her as well. Whenever she chooses a partner,
Yeah.
the first question she always asks herself is, will my parents approve of this guy? And that is tiring, like, I feel.
Yeah.
That's very, very tiring.
And also like understanding that there's so many relationships with parents that it's just too much and too difficult to cross. Okay, do you random question, but what do y'all feel about like cutting out your parents?
I don't think I could ever do it because they've done so much. They've given up their whole lives to provide for, me and my brother. I think
By
it'd be
cutting out,
really
what do you
tough.
mean? Like,
Okay, I think because you love your parents is fine. I think what I'm referring to is like those relationships where the parents are really being very, very toxic. So much so that it's completely tearing the kid's life apart. Because I know that in our culture it's like, you have to stick by no matter what. Family is family. But part of me also feels like if it's really that bad, sometimes just bye. Like because rather than everybody drown together. Yeah. And honestly sometimes when you make that cut and you go and heal yourself, then you have the energy to come back and fix the relationship. But if you're constantly in this battle, like it just doesn't work. But then because as Asian people, it's like it's still in my heart. I'm like, cannot,
Yeah.
Respect,
Yeah.
your seniors,
I'm
your
a
elders.
孝順 my parents. that kind of
Filial
thing.
piety.
Yeah.
That's what
But
they
I
call
feel
it.
like sometimes that can be quite toxic.
I do agree. I don't have to tell my parents everything. Like really, not everything they need to know, because things may backfire.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't completely cut them off.
Actually, that's probably a healthier way around it. Just draw the boundaries.
It's
See,
right.
stable.
Very stable. Very different way of
answers,
thinking, right? Yeah.
It's so funny when you learn like stable mentality. You're like,
Oh, yeah.
it's so obvious. But when you're going through it, you're like, what?
I think it's the way that we react. It's the fight or flight response
Yeah.
also. We just choose to fight. I don't want to fight anyone, but it just comes to my head, right?
But when it comes to parents like that, also, like a lot of it is, it's expected, right, that you give them this respect.
Yeah.
But I've always thought like, I don't care who you are. Like respect is like two-way. Like it's earned,
I've been that way my whole life. And to me, it's always like, I ask for forgiveness better than for permission.
That's true.
That's true. That's very true. But well, as discussed this entire episode, our relationships with our parents can influence our adult relationships in a lot of ways. Among other things, we mimic their behaviors, negative and positive, and we attempt to resolve conflicts the way they do. Like it or not, this is a very subconscious kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think this is something that will continue for cycles and cycles even when we have our own children.
Yeah.
So here comes the kicker. If you were a parent, how would you raise your kids differently than your parents raised you?
Quick thought, Is this why I'm so scared of having a child?
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
Probably.
Generational trauma. It's like you don't want to be a bad parent. You don't want to pass it down. Yeah.
So what would you change?
I have a lot of ideals in my head, but I also feel like maybe it's just easier, said than done. Like, can it really be done? Can I really be that person? Will I really be that person?
What kind of person do you aim to be though? Like parent.
Like, go out there and do whatever you want, like.
Oh.
Oh.
Can I be a child? Oh my god,
So really give them the freedom lah.
Yeah, because I feel like maybe it's because of how I grew up or like how we grew up, right? But I've always felt like the one thing, if there's anything that a parent can give to their child, the one thing that you really, really, really need to instill in them is like resilience.
What about you, Narelle?
What kind of parent I would be, or what I would do different?
What would you do differently?
Yeah.
Oh, talk to my kids. Yeah,
I like that
just
answer.
be very, very, very involved, very attentive, and like just be there, you know. But obviously, it's like you have no idea how you're gonna fuck them up. But we will somehow. And I think that's just something that you also have to learn to forgive yourself for. You can only do the best you can do. I think that's enough.
Most importantly, we have to forgive our parents.
Yeah.
Because as I grow up, I realized my parents are not perfect. Like, far from perfect. When you're young, you think like, oh, they do everything the best that they can. But when you grow up, even though they have flaws, if they do everything out of love, I think that's enough. Yeah.
Right. I agree.
What about you, Hayes?
I think one thing I'll do differently is I will take my kids out for meals every weekend. I don't eat with my parents a lot, and I think this is one thing is a big regret in my life lah. They just don't have that habit. We don't even like sit down at the dining table together to eat, Only occasions, Father's Day, Mother's Day, birthdays, we'll go out and have a meal. And even the meal, sometimes it can be very silent. I think this is not a very good habit. One thing I'll change is definitely this. Build up more communication. I really like the answer. Talk to them. Just talk to them.
Actually, I feel like this is a running theme, like communication issues. Because for me, same thing. Like, I don't want to just talk small talk about the weather, about, or what happened today. I want to talk about, like, deep-rooted issues. Yeah. My feelings and stuff. Like, when I try to talk to my dad about these things, it gets awkward.
Right.
It gets uncomfortable. And I feel like he tries to compartmentalize me.
Yeah.
You get what I mean?
The funny thing is, I always think about how it flips, right? So our parents were this way, and then they say, we think like, oh, this is great, we're going to talk to our children, and then we actually talk to them, and then these like fucking Gen whatever kids will be like, curb it, like, don't talk about that shit. Like, and then you're like, talk to me.
I think our child's problem would be
and then
that
you'll be
we
like,
are
you're
too
so weak,
attached.
man.
Like talking to them too much.
Oh, man.
All this information you can find on the internet. Go read my blog or something, or like, I don't know, go watch my hologram.
I'll text you like, Mom, stop.
Okay, so if you're listening and wonder how you can break out from being like your parents or even choosing someone who has negative traits which you picked up by the people who brought you up, just remember, counseling might help.
Yeah.
More than you think. Don't be afraid to take out the first step.
Definitely. And always, try to be open with your communication. It's tough for people that have never had to do that in their lives.
Right.
But that is the only healthy way forward, unfortunately. If you compartmentalize everything for the rest of your life and not deal with that, it will blow up in some other way. Eventually. Yeah.
And more importantly, I think it's crucial to recognize and accept that your attachment style is part of your personal history. And remember that everything is a process. It's possible to develop healthier relationship with others.
It's possible to be Hazel.
Hashtag be Hazel.
But be kind to yourself,
Yes.
right? Yeah, it's really a journey and it's not going to happen overnight for anyone. Sometimes it takes you the rest of your life.
And I think once you've acknowledged that as well, try to step out there, have a greater look at the world and
Right.
just people and relationships in general. Because if something is what you've seen all your life, that's all you know, right? I think the only way you sort of like realize and like, we can be Hazels too, is when you sort of just like look and, and just look more deeply, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, with that, thank you so much for listening to us. I'm Hazel.
I'm Azira.
I'm Jermaine.
I'm Narelle.
That's right. Make sure you don't forget to check out Narelle's latest EP, Part 3, Complicated Love Song, which this entire episode revolved
is
around.
about.
Yeah. Okay, so actually the fun fact is, we're talking about toxic relationships.
Yeah.
So the part 1 to part 3 was actually my journey of getting over that toxic relationship. Part 1, the song is called Out of My Head, and it's like this angry song about me just being like, I don't care, I'm obsessed, I want this, like, even though the song is twisted and dark. Part 2 is like kind of that sadness, the fear, when you actually start to say, okay, I can't be this way, but you're just terrified, because we have all these things that we are like scared and hurt about. And part 3 is finding that little bit of strength, like you said, the resilience to be like, even though it's crazy, even though shit's fucked up, like I have to stand up for myself. And Complicated Love Song is literally this like happy pop song saying like, I don't love you anymore. And that's cool. And I'm okay with that. Yeah.
It's a cute song. I like it. Very
I
catchy.
love it. And I love Just Shut Up also. Like, I tell it to everyone, just shut up. Like when I say, oh yeah, this was Narelle's song, Just Shut Up. Yeah, that's how I feel every day.
Got you.
So my quick question is, after having gone through this journey and penning down creatively all this feelings and thoughts, how do you feel now?
Like that lor. It's out into the world. It's not my tai chi anymore. I dealt with the feelings, I dealt with the emotions, I put them into the story, and I'm like, I'm good. I'm excited to move on, and I'm ready. At this age also, I feel like you feel different. I feel different.
I feel like this is the turning point.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's a nice way to end this part of my life, I feel.
That's great. Well, thank you very much for tuning in. And, you know, if you've got any questions, feel free to DM us. Yeah.
That's right. You can email us at hello@itsclarity.co. Drop us DM, share with us your stories. We'd love to hear them.
Don't forget to also follow us on Spotify and turn on your push notifications so that you're notified whenever we have a new episode out.
See you next time.
Thanks so much, Narelle, for joining us.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.